What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Today is, well, it's very special to me, near and dear to my heart, because I have a special guest today, Mastin Kipp, and I'll do a little brag here. There's just so much amazing things to say about him, but he's been in the coaching space now for, gosh, going on 20 years, over 20,000 plus hours of working with people, helping them one-on-one, helping them in retreats, groups, etc., etc. He's got a few amazing books out, and one of them he just released a couple of months ago, Reclaim Your Nervous System. And it's awesome because it's such a well put together, in my opinion, 30,000 foot view of all the stuff that's near and dear to me and the stuff that we talk about on this show. So much so, it's impacted me so much so that I've changed the tagline of my show to the self-control show, Reclaim Your Nervous System. So good. I don't even know if I told you that, but
Don't
surprise.
change your name to podcasts again. So funny. Jason,
And
it's always changing names.
so thanks so much for coming on, Mastin. Really appreciate having you.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I love being here, and the work that you're doing and the work that you've been doing to start and grow your business has been so inspiring. So it's a pleasure to be on this incredible podcast that you've created at the beginning of it. And one day we'll look back and say, I remember when,
Dude, so cool. I appreciate it. And, most people already know, but for those that don't, Mastin is probably the most impactful person that I've had, maybe in my life, but certainly in my coaching journey, and continues to support me in that. And yeah, just so looking forward to the future, much like you said. And
Yeah, it's hard to compete with jujitsu, so.
hey, and like I already told you about this, but like your comment about just like one tool and jujitsu like has inspired me to grow into other martial arts modalities. So always
Yes,
pushing me forward,
I
dude.
love that. Try, man.
And yet
You love to grow, so it's fun. It's fun to do that.
I do. And as you say, it's like you're a 200-pound dumbbell, and I definitely feel that, and I've definitely experienced the fruits from that too. So appreciate you so
Yeah,
much.
dude. Yeah, well, same, Jason. You are a wonderful person, husband, father, coach, client, and you put in the work, and it's been so inspiring to see. Remembering all the way back to when you started your Instagram account to
Mm.
now, making your first offers, getting your first clients to now, and then now you are like trailblazing in so many ways because you've put into practice the best practices that we teach around coaching, especially in the context of psychoeducation and nervous system and things that are not necessarily, making money with something.
Yeah.
And you're inspiring a bunch of people to do better in their business also. And you're working with amazing clients and doing a lot of powerful work in men's work. And I know that you're just scratching the surface of where you're going to be, doing this work for long periods of time. It's fun to watch people from the beginning and then see them take off and reach hundreds of thousands and millions of people. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, you lead by example. And it's so interesting because, everything that I talk about with, limiting beliefs and the things that we feel about ourselves and the limits that we set in a lot of ways. It's like I've run up against that ceiling time and time and time again. And it's through the work that I've learned from you and integrated that has like kept me basically grounded and kept me moving forward. Sometimes a lot quicker than others, but the point is like I've never stopped moving. So I appreciate it. And all those kind words are very much well received. Thank you.
Yeah, man, you're welcome.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk to you about your new book, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it. It's a
Yeah.
fun thing to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome book. And like probably one of the things that I like most about you, well, yeah, one of the things that I guess respect and admire most about you is like your ability to take something that is like super complex, like neuroscience, like at a, professor degree level, and basically water it down so that like a fourth or a fifth grader can understand it.
Mm.
And you did that like so amazingly in this book, Reclaim Your Nervous System. And I'm curious, is like what unexpected challenges did you face doing that this time around?
Oh my God, so many. I think that's the hardest thing. As you know, because you're in the functional coaching certification, like we can
Hmm.
teach this stuff at like
Yeah.
such an advanced level, like postdoctorate level,
Yeah.
which in a way is almost easier than teaching it in a simple way. And I think the hardest thing has been knowing this stuff, but the market, the people, the
Mm.
interest really hasn't been there, and convincing people that like this is an important topic, I think has been the hardest thing. And now that it's out there and people are starting to pick it up and resonate with it, I do think that there is going to be a lot more interest in the nervous system. But I have this tendency to be just ahead of where the market's going. Um, and so I think that I wasn't expecting it this time. So I think that was unforeseen, was like trying to convince people as I was writing it
Mm.
that like this is a worthy topic to write about.
Hmm.
And I think probably even more unexpected, and I've shared about this in my newsletter and on my Instagram. In fact, as of the live version of this podcast, it's still pinned to the top of my Instagram. But I just like you work with us as your mentor. I
Hmm.
have mentors that I work with too who are further down the road, and mentors are supposed to be safe people. And
Mm.
there's a specific person who I went to a few years back talking about this work and trauma informed work and coaching and the gap between coaching and therapy and all these things. And I thought they were a safe person
Hmm.
and was vulnerable with them. And they basically told me I had no place to do this work. I have no college degree. They couldn't even believe I had, didn't have a master's. I was like, I don't even have an undergrad and little master's, which they couldn't believe. And I went to a
Mm.
safe person who ended up sort of being dangerous. And I was so open with them that I really took in the negative feedback personally, which is really rare for me to do that because I have
Mm.
a pretty good shield. So I think the combination of taking that in, which it took years to really process that because it was such a safe person up until that point,
Mm.
um, combined with convincing people before it was out that this is the right thing to talk about,
Yeah.
made this a very long process. And I had so many doubts about like, is this even worth doing?
Mm.
And so, you know, by the time it came out, I was so like, it already felt like I did a marathon. I don't even read the book yet. It was 7 years in the making. It should only take a year or two at max to do a book.
Yeah.
But it was 7 years in the making. It got done because of my friend Tucker Max and Emily, an editor that I worked with. And that's why I'm taking a year to promote it, because I
Mm.
don't want to burn myself out either, because the goal is not to just be here for 2 weeks and get a New York Times bestseller and then go away. Like this, to me, this is a book that and which is happening. People are reading it and then giving it to people.
Dude.
And that's how all of my books have been so far, has been word of mouth. And so we're really on like this year-long burn to get the message out there, which is
Mm.
also unexpected. I thought I was just going to release it, but then I realized like, no, like I'm going to release it differently than I had before. So every book has like a life of its own.
Hmm.
And this book certainly has had a very strange life. I'm happy that it's out into the world now. Also, it feels like I passed a kidney stone a little bit. Not that I've ever done that, or am I calling that in, but I'm happy that it's out. And
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled at the response that it's getting too, because whenever you release creative work into the world, you never know how. We don't do it for the response. We don't do it. We do it for ourselves because we know we have to do it. But it's really beautiful that it's been so well received and people are buying it and sharing it. Like the word of mouth on it has just been really beautiful.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, and it's so funny because
All
like what
unexpected. So
sure it is. I mean, certainly it's not unexpected for me to hear that response, and that's what the response you're getting, because like I mean, I personally, as you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, like I've like turned probably 10 or 15 people onto the book, just because it's
oh
like I
wow, thank
can't
you.
stop talking about, ever since I've learned what I've learned from you guys, how that it has affected my own life. And so it's like people
Yeah.
are curious about it, and maybe they get tired of hearing me talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, well, if you want to know, just read this book.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's been very interesting actually. Like I'm always curious at like when I put something out, whether it's a post or an email or any communication, certainly a book, which is a more significant communication, like what the response is. Because meaning of communication is the response that you get. and the first podcast I was on, Henry Amar said, Mastin, I used to have like 5 books I used to give people who wanted
Mm-hmm.
to be into this world of nervous system and somatics and trauma and high performance and stuff. And now I have 1 book
Yeah,
I can
dude.
give them. And that was probably the coolest thing I ever heard.
Dude,
Um, and so it's been, I don't know. I feel like hearing what you're saying, like for you, it's not surprising. I feel like I'm shocked
that's crazy. I mean,
because I feel like Frodo, where I just like the ring is finally going in. You don't even know the journey I've been
yeah,
on. You're like, of
yeah,
course he's gonna put the ring in there. Like
yeah,
what are you talking about? Meanwhile, I'm just like, my precious. It's been a journey, bro.
yeah.
Because you see me in the context of coaching, you see me in the
Mm-hmm.
context of doing my thing, but the behind the scenes of my own expression with my parts that hold me back because
Mm-hmm.
of my own neglect when I was young and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Combined with everything I've said, like the journey has been very cumbersome, and so that's why by the time I got it out, I was just like, I was just like, it's out, like just go be with the world, and now it's like has a life of its own, and you're picking it up and telling the people about it, and Henry, and then Michael
Yeah.
Hyatt picked it up and he's giving it to his whole mastermind, and Henry Cloud started following me. I'm like a Henry Cloud fan forever, like the books on boundaries and stuff like that. It has
Mm-hmm.
this compounding effect that like I've never really seen with other books that I've done. So I feel very grateful about that, and it's a massive act of surrender.
Yeah.
I don't talk a lot about my spiritual beliefs in the context of training people how to work with trauma and stuff like that, but this is a major major act of surrender, putting this book into the world, and I am so grateful that it's being so well received. So thank you for your belief; it really means a lot, and I'll borrow it for a while.
Dude, hell yeah. And it's so funny because that like just perfectly aligns with just you, right? It's just like everybody's doing this over here, and it's like, well, I'm gonna go this way and do
Yeah.
that, and that makes perfect sense because yeah, there's a lot of people that are like, I mean, I know very little about publication for books, and I know everybody tries to go out on all the podcasts and do all the things, but like the quality of what is in Reclaim Your Nervous System and the again, the high level information that is just like so easily digestible. It's like this seed of an oak tree, if you will,
Mm,
where it's like, man, we're putting it out or you're putting it out into the world. And like, it's one of those things. Like, I love that. Like Henry said that because that so resonates with me because it's just something that like it has all the things into one. And like,
yeah.
again, something that you do so well is you take all the things, you make it really easy to understand, but not only that, but you kind of like fit them together in this like
Mm,
really um, easily digestible and easily put together puzzle. So just
yeah.
reflecting that to you.
I try. I mean, I work hard at that, and I think the other thing too is that like I've been a part of like masterminds with very high level successful internet entrepreneurs for a very long time. I've invested millions of dollars in my personal development, marketing training, etc. And the thing is that like you get like a group think, and my way of being doing sort of the opposite. It's not on purpose. It just sort of happens. It's not like I'm trying to do the opposite, but
Right.
it's also like when I look at like who do I want to model? Because you model people, and then success leaves clues, as Tony Robbins says. I want to model like Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, or like
Mm,
Brene Brown, who didn't really take off until her third or fourth book, and when she did, her whole catalog lifted. Or like my favorite band in the world is Tool, and they just like never really went super pop culture, but they could sell multiple Staples centers. And I remember like when I was the music manager, like watching, this is a long time ago, but watching Linkin Park come on the scene with Hybrid Theory, their first album,
mm,
and like we managed them, and like they like went on tour and they met everybody, and they like literally like they put such sweat, blood, and tears into it, and then they built this like massive thing. Unfortunately, Chester took his life, which is really
mm,
sad. But
mm,
like it's like, or even Slipknot, who's a heavy metal band, like now they have Knotfest. I mean, they're basically modern day Kiss. They're bigger than
yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne or any of the other metal bands that came before them. And it's like they built a solid foundation. They weren't just trying to have like a hit single or whatever. And I think
Mm,
sometimes in the internet marketing space, there's this gear towards the product launch, the book coming out. And it's like, that's cool, but is it timeless? Does it like, why are you releasing a book? It's so hard to do a book. And like, I want Reclaiming Your Nervous System to be a bestseller forever, not for
yeah.
just 2 weeks. And Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, took 10 years.
Hmm.
for it to take off, So it's to me, Tool, same thing. Like they just toured and they released great music, and there's word of mouth and discovery with it
Yeah,
versus, and I think that's the best marketing today anyway, is
it
discovery
is.
versus like pushing things on people. And then I'm, being present for 2 weeks, then you're gone, versus just a slow and steady burn. I'm way more into
Yeah,
steady state than I am into
yeah,
high intensity stuff. And I have a different model. I'm not modeling the traditional internet marketing hype machine, because that's not who I am or what I'm trying to be about. And I think
yeah.
another person who's done it and been around for decades is Tony Robbins. He has a consistent presence, a
Hmm.
consistent level of value of over delivering. And say what you want about him, I think he's phenomenal what he does. He
For
truly
sure.
is service oriented about serving people and serving his clients and over delivering an experience.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's just sort of my orientation. So I have all that like in my subconscious. So
Hmm.
when it's like, how do you want to release this book? It's like, it's sort of against every fiber of my being to just do a 2 week push and then be gone. Because it was so hard to write, So why would I only give it 2 weeks of attention? I want
Yeah,
it to be there for forever, basically. So that's sort of my mindset. I'm just not following the groupthink of traditional internet marketing,
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that aligns so well with one of the things when I first
which is
met you.
reclaiming my nervous system.
Yeah. That's amazing. And one of your principles or your core values is like just because something like that's the way we do it, like that's not good enough. It's like you're always trying to do it better. You're trying to
That's right.
optimize. And like, dude, one of the most impactful things basically in my life is embodying what you just said. Like with my coaching business, real estate business, being a dad, husband, etc., is slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like it's so counterintuitive to the groupthink of, really in the United States, I'd say especially. And like, how do you think that like high performers can like receive this book? Because like that's really who you work with are the guys that are, trying to push forward. And like, how do you get them to like understand the counterintuitiveness and slowing down is actually going to benefit
Yeah.
them long term?
Yeah. I don't. I let their body do it for them, and then they come to me.
This is very true.
I'm serious.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like that's what had to happen to me. Like you couldn't convince me. I mean, I'm not really
Mm,
into working with people who don't get it. Like I don't like I used to try to convince people. Like it's like at some point it'll become sort of obvious that
mm,
we experience our life through our nervous system. Trauma is experienced through our nervous system. Healing is
yeah,
experienced through our nervous system. High performance and flow state is experienced through our nervous system. So that is the nervous system is the conduit through which we experience life.
that's right.
Well, if that's the case, you might want to know how yours works. And if
Yeah.
you're not ready for that, like, cool, like, that's cool. But if you're burned out, if you're stuck at a plateau, if you're ambitious and your life is falling apart, and you've tried everything and the modalities, which we all love, are failing
Hmm.
you, well,
Hmm.
there might be more for you to consider.
Hmm.
And like I think Michael Hyatt was public about this,
Hmm.
so I'm not outing him. He had a heart attack. He's a very high performer in the
Hmm.
coaching space, had a heart attack, and by all metrics was healthy. And then again, very public about it, basically realized that because he got another book called Widen the Window from his
Hmm.
daughter Mary, basically realized he had allostatic load, which is the accumulation of stress over time. So Michael reached
Yeah.
out to me, and I'm like, you know what allostatic load is? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know any other internet marketer, entrepreneur, coach. Like, nobody knows what allostatic load is. So when
Right.
Michael Hyatt said allostatic load to me, for me, it was an indication of a paradigm shift that's beginning.
Mm.
And he just put on Instagram recently that he had his brand new mastermind. I think it's called a Double Win Mastermind. And I
Hmm.
was looking at the video, and then like it went inside where like the dinner was, and there was a Reclaim Your Nervous System book like at every thing. I was like, what? Like this is crazy. And
Dude.
so for me, it's like that's and like that's kind of been my intuition the whole time, is it's like this word of mouth thing. But the
Yeah.
sequence of events was not let me go convince Michael. It was
Hmm.
Michael had, thank God, a mild physical event that led him, and a very loving daughter who was into this work, Mary, and then led him into this curious tunnel of the nervous
Mm.
system, which led him to me. And now he's like spreading it. And so I think that that's going to continue to
Yeah.
happen, because once people understand the framework of reclaiming your nervous system and understanding how your nervous system works, it applies to anything you're going through.
Yes, it
Right. So
does.
it's like you have relationship problems. Okay, cool. You want to make more money. Okay, cool. Oh, you have a business you want to start. Okay, great. Like, what is your issue? Like, you have a health problem. Okay, cool. Like, getting your nervous system on board is a part of all of that. And in a way, it's not necessarily a new idea. I mean, Tony Robbins has been doing neuro-associative conditioning for decades, which is his
Yeah.
improvement or innovation on NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, though, is that Tony, I would say, is more like CrossFit, and we're more like TB12, which is Tom Brady's approach to pliability and performance. And so it's like, Tom Brady was 45, I think, when he retired,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a high performer, but he could take a hit without being taken out.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really what we help people do is perform at their best while experiencing the full range of their emotions and physical
Mm-hmm.
sensations without stopping or without overriding or without needing to have a crisis to manage it, basically.
Yeah.
So to me, that's sort of the analogy. And so I'm not trying to convince people. I'm just trusting that they're going to pick it up and start to figure this out in a different way. And that's what's been happening so far. So the leap of faith has been working so far,
Gosh,
which is
I
pretty
mean,
cool to see.
so cool. And that makes really good sense. Because I mean, that's how I found you. It's like I was searching. I was searching for the thing. I'm like, what the heck? And then I came across one of your Instagram posts and I'm like, dude, this is it. And like all the
Yep.
things that you said are true, where it's like, if you can, if I could put it out there for everybody that's listening, just get one thing right, or to go down a rabbit hole in one area of your life, it would be understanding your nervous system, like why it's acting the way that it's acting or reacting the way that it's acting, and organize it so that you can have more agency in your life with basically anything that you do.
Amen. That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you want to feel in charge of your life, understanding how your nervous system works is where you would start. And I think also, how should I put this? Like, my goal, I mean, yes, I want to be personally successful. I want our institute to be personally successful also. But also, my goal is to create a wave of people who embody this in a way
Mm,
even bigger than me. And I think
mm-hmm,
that, like, there are very few teachers today who have produced a student more successful than them,
mm-hmm.
right? The only
Yeah.
one I can think of is probably Russell Brunson,
Mm,
because Alex Hormozy came out of Russell's world.
yeah.
Now, who's more successful? I mean, on the software side, I mean, Russell's crushing it with ClickFunnels, but like, I don't see like a lot of coaches producing like that level of clientele who come through their stuff.
Yeah.
And Russell has been such an I don't know him personally. I would love to meet him one day, but he's
Mm,
been an inspiration to me in how I want to approach things, because for me, it's like this is so beyond just like my personal brand. Like, yes, I love my
mm,
personal brand. I want it to continue to grow. I want it to be successful, etc. But this is a mission to help people understand how their nervous system works in the context of healing and performance, so that we can get into more interesting things and
yeah.
have better conversations and improve the lives of people. And I want our students and the people that we train to crush it. And I think the
Mm,
mark of a great student is the teacher and vice versa. And so I'm hoping to create a wave of people who are able to pick up like what you're doing, pick up the torch and take it as far, potentially further than me. Though you're going to be up for quite a challenge to do that, because I'm a workhorse. But we joke, we have fun on that. But it's a healthy
yes.
competition. But I just for me, that's what this is about, really, because the information is so necessary for
Yeah.
people to have. It's because it makes everything else make sense.
Absolutely. And like there's whatever, is there 8 billion people or 9 billion people in the
Oh
world?
God,
There's
it's going so fast now. It
yeah,
used to be seven. I don't know, a
yeah,
lot. I stopped counting.
yeah. So there's plenty of space, and
Yeah,
like
and I'll say it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. There was a
no
little bit
go.
of a delay on our. I was going to say, like, this time of year and this time of our cycle in America. Guess what? Republicans have nervous systems, and
Mm-hmm.
Democrats have nervous systems,
Mm-hmm.
and people of color have nervous systems, and white people have nervous systems, and the LGBTQ community has nervous systems, and like everybody has a nervous system. And so, to me, this is a topic that's so you can't not get behind it.
Right.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
Yes.
it's like because we all experience life through the lens of the nervous system, and so I think that's another thing too. Is it's a non it's a highly relevant, non-polarizing topic.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's
I
like,
do.
it's religion, ketogenic diet. Those are polarizing topics, right?
For
But your
sure.
nervous system, it's like if you don't get on board with it, you're going to have problems. Period. End of
Yes.
story.
Period. End of story. 100% agree on that. And so well put. Because yeah, let's face it. It's like if you are living and breathing, it's like in some way, shape, or form, your nervous system is impacting your daily decisions, like who you choose in your romantic relationships, what jobs you choose, why you're not quitting your job to maybe go after that business that you really want, how you're showing up with your family, and so on and so forth. And
That's
one
right.
of the things that like it's so funny because like when I first started working with you guys, I was just like, man, it's like you don't really take credit for very much in like the teachings, right? Like you synthesize so well. And to your point again, it's like, yeah, there are so many people out there and that I'm starting to learn. It's just like, no, this is kind of like my thing that I created. And it's like, I don't know if that's 100% true. But again, just letting go of
Yeah.
that belief that like you need to be the person that came up with the thing or else it's like it doesn't make the thing like as effective is just like so far from the truth. And I think in a way it holds a lot of our industry back potentially.
Oh, massively. I mean, like, look, like I am the co-creator of functional coaching with Jenna. Like, there's no
Hmm.
doubt about that. Um, like we pioneered trauma-informed coaching in the coaching side, in the business side. We pioneered trauma-informed sales. We pioneered there's so many things that we pioneered. But at the end of the day, like that's cool. But if you study like the coaching world and and certainly the psychology world,
Hmm.
it is so rare for a modality to outlive its founder.
Mm.
Like most people have probably never heard of redecision therapy as an
Yeah.
example. Why? Because it died with their founders, right? Very few, right? Like EMDR survived Francine Shapiro, but it got away from her. Somebody else took it and made it happen.
Hmm.
NLP survived John Grinder and Richard Bandler, even though I think they're both still here. But that's because Tony took it and like blew it up, right?
Hmm.
And so like, right now, I'm more concerned with creating a framework and an approach and understanding a legacy that surpasses me as a person,
Yeah,
because that's way more important. I love my personal brand. I want it to continue to grow.
for sure.
But if what we're creating is not as big or as impactful or limited by my personal brand, I feel like that will be a failure,
Mm.
because I want it to outlast me by a lot. I think
Yeah.
someone who's done this tremendously well is Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who's basically the father of functional medicine
Mm.
in creating the Institute for Functional Medicine that will have a legacy well beyond his years. Mark Hyman has taken that torch and done a beautiful thing with it, and Dr. Helen Messier as well.
Hmm.
But I think that our industry, and I'll put coaches and therapists into it, there's such a focus on the person,
Yeah,
which there needs to be a charismatic person who starts something. It's just kind of how it is.
sure.
But like if the intention is for it to just be limited to the personal brand, you'll have your impact while you're alive, which is a beautiful thing. But
Hmm.
what will be your legacy?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what functional coaching represents, and reclaim your nervous system represents, is it's the beginning of a legacy of something beyond me personally or Jenna personally, into something that will become much, much, much larger. Because what we're ultimately talking about here is nothing that anybody invented. We're talking about the human nervous system, which has been
Yeah.
around for millions of years. This
Yeah.
is not new. We're just understanding it in a different way, in a different context. And so I think that's something that makes us a little bit different too, is that I don't have to be the person that changes the world. It does not have to be my
Mm.
personal brand, though I
Hmm.
love those things. It's really about intentionally creating something that is beyond an individual person.
Yeah, dude. I mean, so well put. And that's like exactly what you guys are doing. And it just becomes like more and more clear to me. It's like I always knew I was right where I was supposed to be with the right people, learning the right things, pushing forward in the right ways. And the more that I start to rub elbows with like, people that I've perceived as quote unquote further along or have a greater following, and we start getting into the nitty gritty and the details and like, the practitioner side of stuff and the really the entrepreneurial side of stuff too. It's just like it's so clear to me, like just how how much great stuff you guys have to offer with just like not only like the information, but like how it's put together, how it's structured. And,
Mm.
there's going to be coaches that listen to this. And it's just like the way that your blueprint is set up for businesses. It's like I've done, I mean, more or less nothing but listen and watch and do and execute what you guys
That's
have
true.
told us to do. And I've had nothing but like amazing success with that. And of course, I've invested in my own co-regulation, as everybody should. Um, but at the very baseline level, all I've
Mm.
done is just followed exactly what you guys have put out there, and it's just like top-notch stuff.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. I think if someone comes to us for the first time, they don't really know how good they have it sometimes, and they
Mm,
leave the nest and they kind of realize, like, wait a
yeah,
minute, hold on a second.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think that there's a difference between being a great coach and being a great marketer. I think it's good to be both. If I had to pick one, though, I'd rather be a great coach.
yeah.
Um, and I think that one of the things that makes me compassionately angry, which is a benchmark of uh, product creation for
Mm-hmm.
me and what we teach in terms of what you should spend your time on, because it's what will drive you when things get hard, is, we live in a world where people who can change the world are quiet and people
Mm-hmm.
who are hurting the world are loud.
Mm,
And I want that to be the opposite.
yeah, yeah,
you know, or at least balanced, where the
yeah,
people who can change the world are louder and not held back by childhood conditioning around visibility, using their voice,
yeah,
being assertive, etc.
yes. Yeah, and I think a lot of people that get out to help and want to heal have been, obviously experienced things like that. So it's definitely important to face that head on in a lot of ways and have the
Big
right
time,
support to help you through it. Because like I've done
big
plenty of
time.
sales trainings, especially in like my past lives, if you will, in real estate, where it's just like, suck it up, buttercup, or just like do the thing and just like as a practitioner would say, bypass. And like, again, why I love your guys' approach, and for people that like maybe aren't as familiar with the nervous system, it's like you attack in a lot of ways the root cause of what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, how should I put this? Like, I think it's just I'm impatient. Like there's so much, there's so much to talk about and so much to get done in life, and it's just like let's just talk about the thing that's going to move the needle forward, or not
Yeah,
talk. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Otherwise, it's like I'm not good at small talk in that way. I mean, like, with friends and stuff like that, I am. But when it comes like work, like helping someone with their life, it's just like I want to be able to move the needle. And if I can't move
yeah,
the needle, what's the point? And
yeah,
we hold experiences in our nervous system that are from previous conditioning that show up. And Freud called it repetition compulsion, where we tend to repeat the same thing over and over and over again
mm,
until we release it or heal it.
mm,
But what we don't talk about too much is we do it again once it gets harder. So we have this sort of like fractaled repetition compulsion to repeat previous childhood conditioning at every level of complexity that we elevate towards. And so
yes,
at level one Jumanji, level two Jumanji, level, it's just the same repetition over and over and over. Every time I expand, I have a part of me that's like, no one's showing up to this, whatever it is. And that never goes away.
yeah,
Right. And but that part's not in the driver's seat. And so I think that when you understand that, it's not like you're superstitious. You're just intelligent at recognizing patterns to say,
yeah,
well, this is probably what's going to happen. I might as well prepare for that and plan for that, not pathologize it, not call it a limiting belief, or not say I'm in a story, and just be like, well, that was true at some point. And um, a part of me holds that as true now. And let's use that for growth rather than for self destruction,
yeah,
and for integration, and to be able to have a positive relationship with the most uncomfortable parts of our personality. That makes you a far more effective entrepreneur, father, husband, anything. If
yeah,
you can have a positive self relationship with every aspect of yourself, especially the hard parts of you, right? The parts that you don't want to pay attention to.
that's right.
And I think in coaching, basically, people who don't know how to do that will just tell you that you're in a story and
Mm-hmm.
blame you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When really it's like they don't know how to work with you in that way,
Yeah,
you know?
dude. Yeah. And it's like, and then shame comes in, and there was like this, his name, Brandon Kochanowski, I think he said. He's like, yeah, shame breeds secrecy, and then secrecy breeds
Hmm.
more shame. And then
Hmm.
that's just the cycle that
Yeah,
repeats. And then you go further and further away, depending on your experiences with asking for help and like
that's
isolation.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And like,
Yeah.
it's so funny because like I was thinking, even though you said it, like, oh yeah, once I like figure this out and I integrate it, as I move forward, it's like that's the easy part because I've got like everything organized. Like you said, facing certain parts of me that I didn't want to face or integrate or look at. But it's like it's so cool because in one aspect we can look to the past to basically figure out and reorganize how and why we're presenting in the present. And then we can like look forward and use that ambition and drive to heal and
That's right.
continuously heal moving forward. And not only that, but make our lives so much better.
Yeah, that's right. And you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. And I think coming out of that isolation is hard. And I think it's the elephant in the room that a lot of people don't talk about is we are, if you're a high performer, you're plagued with this thing called ambition.
Hmm.
And when you have ambition, that means you're constantly changing the rules on yourself. And that means you're constantly wanting more and you're constantly making things more complex. And that's not really taken into account in the trauma healing space, um, making things more complex or harder. And in the coaching space, we don't really take into account usually what's happened to us and how that's going to present when things get harder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which makes no sense. Like if you have a previous injury, you would never ignore that if you were going to go lift for a personal record. It
That's
makes no
right.
sense, right?
Yeah.
So, and when you say it that way, people are like, oh yeah, okay. But like that's literally like how coaching is. It's just that's 99% of coaching is just not. It's just change your story, change your life. But that's just not how. If it were only so easy,
Yeah.
it just and that's just not how it works. Because we have to consistently recondition your nervous system, but then you change the rules by having ambition.
Mm. Yeah.
So
It's like
it's
you're
a
moving the
constant state of
goalpost.
adjustment. But you're the one doing it. You're moving your own goalpost on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big time. Yeah,
Yeah,
big
that's
time.
so good. And I love one of the most things I love about like the analogies that you use is just like this whole, you know, um, your nervous system and integration and parts and all that stuff and like, the feminine and getting into understanding your emotions is like the equation that you use to like physical lifting. And dude, it lands so well. Because like one of the things that I say is like, yeah, think about it, like you get a cut or you break a bone, there's like standard procedure for how you act the next 4 to 6 weeks and what you do,
Mhm.
how you treat yourself, who helps you, what sorts of supplements and things that you take. But think about it, if you had like a big emotional event that, causes an injury emotionally to your nervous system, especially before 25 when your prefrontal's on, like what do? It's like there's not really, well, I mean, there is now, but there's not very generalized information out there. Well, now with your book, there is about how you treat that, and it's like, yeah, if
Right.
you have
Yeah.
cut and you're bleeding, do you just like let it bleed all over the place? And it's like,
Right.
do you just like suck it up and not be a baby about it? It's like no, and it's like that is such a big shift that I think like this book is definitely going to bring to light
Mm.
is that sort of protocol or at least understanding of why things are showing up the way that they are, and especially for me is like de-shame the
Yes.
behaviors or symptoms or coping mechanisms and how that's presenting in someone's current life.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite thing about the work is people go, oh, that's why I do that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense now, right? Now we
Yeah.
don't do that work for it to make sense and then we let that part of you that's dysfunctional run your life,
Right.
like that's one of the unintentional consequences of all this parts work people are doing
Hmm.
is like, oh, let me find the most traumatized part of myself and then put it in charge of my life. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not why we do parts work.
Right. Right.
We do parts work to do the opposite.
Yeah. Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah, dude. And like it's yeah, and I've had well over and over, almost every week ahas in a lot of ways. And how that presents in my life and opportunity after opportunity, of course, having a 19-month-old and being married to reflect on all those
Mhm.
situations. So, how do you think that
You're
your
living it.
books? Yeah, I'm freaking living it, bro. Yeah, that's for sure. And how do you think like your book's going to impact the coaching industry for the next 10 years?
I have no idea, bro. Um, I have no idea. It's an interesting question. I think like hopefully, I mean, I think in general, coaching, psychotherapy, etc., my general premise is that if we have models of psychology or performance or healing that don't align with our fundamental first principles of how our biology works,
Hmm.
um, and our nervous system works, we should toss them out.
Yeah,
Um, just like you should toss out any plans for an airplane that violates the laws of physics.
that's a really good point.
Right? Um, like, why would we do that, right? And so I think that like understanding that like, if you just study psychology, it hasn't really been around for that long as a field. It's a little
Yeah,
over 100 years old.
yeah.
And what you had is you have a bunch of uh, very smart, mostly men, highly educated men, um, coming up with ideas about what the psyche is, and really good ideas sometimes.
Hmm.
And then we get some idea of somatics years later. Freud was in the late 1800s, and then Wilhelm Reich was in the 1930s. And then women are coming on and like making John Bowlby's work in attachment theory better with Mary Ainsworth and things like that. And so, and then all of a sudden, we start to get into trauma work, and we start to understand neuroscience, and we have fMRI imaging, and now we have neurofeedback, and we have all these different measurements of heart rate
Hmm.
variability, and like nanoparticles that we can measure in stomach. I mean, there's so many things we can measure now we
Yeah,
couldn't measure before. But like, we really need to look at these models of healing and these models of performance and say, does this align with the first principles of how the nervous system works?
yeah.
Like, does it or does it not? Like, does it really align to say you're in a story when you're talking about something that's blocking you? Is that really a limiting belief? I don't really
Hmm.
know. Maybe we should throw that idea out, because if the
Hmm.
universe is infinite, any belief that isn't infinite would by definition be limiting on some level. So like, is that relevant? Is it more self-protecting? So I hope that this work and this idea around the nervous system and polyvagal theory and how we can integrate healing and performance just helps people align with things that are aligned with how they work,
Yeah,
not just based on what somebody said
yeah,
works
yeah,
because they came up with a model that is different, cool, or whatever. Like, I think coming up with models is great. Every model is incomplete. But I think I think it'll be less about a model and more about behavioral changes.
yeah.
Um, like, I think, like before the Wright brothers, there was very little happening in aviation.
Mm,
After the Wright, and by the way, in this analogy, Stephen Porges is the Wright brothers, not me.
yeah. Okay.
Um, just so we're really clear. Um, but like after the Wright brothers, though, I mean, we have a whole like aviation, industry that's
Right.
now in the space and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so I think that like, I just hope that coaching and the psychotherapy models become more aligned with how we are actually wired, not
Mm,
just on someone's idea of the id, the ego, the superego, an
yeah,
exile, a
yeah,
manager, a protector. Like, those are all cool models
yeah.
of psychology, but how do they really align with our nervous system and how we're actually wired? And can we be willing to challenge some long-standing beliefs in the coaching and therapy space
Mm,
and say, you know what, let's toss that out. Like, the second Einstein came up with a theory of relativity, it didn't debunk Newton. It just it recontextualized Newton, because Newton's
right.
laws apply in context sometimes, right? But then you get weird shit depending on gravity and stuff like that. If you see Interstellar, you know what I'm talking about. And so like we have to be willing to adjust how we understand things
Yeah.
based on what we're learning about how we're wired. And I think there'll be a paradigm shift, and that's not just based on this work. I think that's based on the work of really good scientists who are doing this work, and then people like me are synthesizing it and bringing it to the world
Yes.
faster. Um, but that's what I hope happens. Um,
Yeah.
and I hope that there's less like guru worship about like, oh my God, this person and their model,
Yeah.
and more focus on people and results. And it's less about uh, lots of uh, 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 charismatic leadership and more about, just like best practices. I think someone who's leading the path on that in a beautiful way would be Lane Norton in the
Mm,
fitness space, Huberman, also Andrew Huberman's work, very much grounded in the science. But then we have to also, like Andrew and Lane do, we have to be willing to change our mind with new information coming out all the time too, right? Because you don't
yes.
want to be attached to like, this is the way, right?
Right.
Unless you're a Mandalorian. But other than that, right? Like we want it to be, we want to be sort of open to what we're learning in the science and be willing to change our minds, which is I think going to be challenging a lot of psychotherapy and coaching models and our
Mm,
assumptions about how things work.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's so well put. Especially it's like when new information comes out, especially when it's rooted in biology and the mechanisms of action, as you so favorably always teach me, of like just like how do things work? How do the X's and O's line up? It's like it makes perfect sense for that to be kind of like your North Star as the
yep,
foundational framework. And then like let's put everything on top of like real foundation and
that's right.
even for the coaches and the therapists, like working with clients, when you have that, then all of a sudden there isn't this like pressure to like need to know because like the client is the one that knows, and when we know what we know, we can help them guide them back to what they already know and what they don't know in a lot of cases.
Someone sounds a little bit like Milton Erickson today.
Well, I have a really good teacher.
Spot on. I think what you said is spot on. I think aligning it with align. I just yeah. I love methodologies,
Mm,
um, and like modalities, but we're worshiping like modalities when it's like the modality is relatively irrelevant because we're all working with the same nervous system.
yeah,
Whether you call it neurolinguistic programming or internal family systems or EMDR or somatic experiencing or neuroassociative conditioning or whatever, right? Pilates, yoga. Yeah, if you want to get humbled, go do some hot Pilates.
yeah,
But like it's like everything is working on the nervous system.
yeah,
If you understand how the nervous system works, you can sort through this is kind of not really the right thing. This is kind of the right thing. Maybe this is the right thing for me because there's bio
hmm,
individuality also. But I think to me that's the future of the coaching and the therapy space is things that are aligned with that for the individual also.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, as it should be, right? There's no like one case fits all. And when you have a
Yeah,
working model like you talked about, it's like then it doesn't matter who's in front of you because we know for the most part their working anatomy is going to um, have the same potential responses and what those look like and how they present. We could use the proper tool for the proper job at
that's right.
hand. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. 100%. And and also it demystifies it because I think sometimes certainly in the spiritual world and in the
Mm,
personal development space, there's this like mystery around who
yeah.
knows what and who has what special knowledge, right? And it's just like get out of here with that.
Yeah, dude.
Like there's no special knowledge, there's just special application of that knowledge for you personally.
Mm,
I think we need to democratize that also, because there shouldn't be a special keeper of the knowledge,
yeah.
where I know something that you don't, and because I know something that you don't, I have a better connection to something than you do, like God or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just like no, that to me that's not the future. I think
Yeah.
the days of the guru are over. I think the future is about synthesis.
I completely agree, and it's hilarious because, of course, you know me, I'm always comparing things back to jujitsu. And that's how it used to be like 10, 15 years. Like the black belts kind of had their, secret techniques that like they wouldn't even teach certain students unless you like took a private lesson from them or you got 5 years in with them, then they maybe show you. And then guess what? The internet came out and the best people started putting all their stuff out there and selling it and giving it to people. And guess what? They learn that, then they learn something else, and then that person's brain kind of puts those things together in a new and better, more effective, more efficient way. And then the next thing you know, all of a sudden, rising tide raises all ships. It pushes everybody even further.
Yeah,
And I could certainly see how that can absolutely impact this space.
big time. And it's threatening, uh, in a way, to the status quo, and it also means you better keep up,
Yeah.
because the standard of care that's expected by the general public is also increasing also because, not just Google, but like with AI fact
Mm,
checking you in real time. Like
yeah.
the next time I do like an actual live seminar, I know I'm going to get fact checked in real time by someone with Claude or ChatGPT or something. I'm going to say some shit.
Yeah.
And like, actually, Mastin, the PubMed ID, blah, 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 something. I know it's going to happen, but that's the world that we live in, adapt or die,
Yeah.
like that's just how it is. And so I think it's ultimately going to be a good thing. And I think it's going to be better for the consumer. It's going to be better for the people who are passionate about this work, and it's going to make the work better because it's grounded in um, how we're wired, not how someone thinks we should be based on a model they created. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I mean, it's going to be better for everybody except for the gurus and the people that have like their secret sauce that they don't want to tell everybody.
yeah. Well, it won't be secret anymore. So
That's true. And you know what's funny? It's like I was also, because obviously of, learning this stuff, mystified in a way. And the more it demystified, the more I'm like, yeah, and it's really cool that not only is he demystifying it and not making it a big deal, empowering, not only the people that he's working with, but the people that he's training, and still being able to be a very, very effective practitioner to help the people that are learning the things that he's teaching them and get them to move forward, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's like the
well,
black
it
belt
makes
teaching
sense.
the tools and then being able to counter the counters and help people move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, and also, I mean, you and a few others, y'all keep me on my toes too, because like I don't hold back. Y'all go figure shit out, and then I have to know the next step also. So
Yeah.
I feel like having like awesome high level students who are really into things is like the best way to predict the future too as a
Hmm.
business owner, right? Because it's like the people who are our students who are out there who are like really learning the principles of functional coaching and learning the nervous system and then implementing, and then I get to see what happens with them also and what's happening on their side. Then I get to observe, I get more data, and
Hmm.
then I can see a new problem, which then allows me to have a new thought about the
Yeah.
next step. And that's really how I'm oriented.
Hmm.
And I say this all the time, and it hasn't caught on. I feel like it should, because it's like this biggest open secret ever about how to be successful. The way to always be relevant is to pay attention to your ideal clients' unsolved problems.
Hmm.
And so, like, I'm not sitting here going, "What are other people doing in the market?" I'm like
Yeah.
looking at you and other people, going, "What are your current today unsolved problems? Let's go solve those problems."
Yeah.
And that's always been my focus,
Yeah.
right? And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you're a black belt, I'm a black belt, cool, but I have a little bit more technique than you in this context, and I'm
Hmm.
seeing that this thing that you're doing now that you're at this level can be tweaked that way. I wouldn't even have that thought before,
That's right.
right? So it's like we try to make our students better, and then they do better, which then makes us better as
Yeah.
teachers
Well, and
too,
that's,
also. And I
yeah.
love that feedback
I
loop.
I love that too. And again, another reason why I chose into you, because that's just the mindset that I have in life. And it's just
Yeah,
like so evident and clear. And yeah, it is kind of crazy because it's like it's not like this secret equation either. It's like very matter of fact. Like when somebody has a problem and they solve it, they're naturally, like you said before, going to be cursed with most likely the ambition of life. And then they're going to move forward and have another problem. And it's
that's
like,
right.
what problems do you feel, passionately angry about? And who are those people that you want to help? And then it's like, dude, other now just pay attention and listen and get to work.
That's right. Yep, exactly. Exactly right. Yeah, well said.
Well, freaking A, Maston. I'm like, this is like a highlight of my career,
Uh-oh.
and so stoked to have you on.
Bro,
And so stoked for more and more people to get a hold of your book. And of course, like if you're looking to get into coaching or you're in coaching and you do want the secret sauce and you want to be led by somebody that is like totally charging tip of the spear, that is like just an amazing practitioner in his own regard, and like an even better, I may say, entrepreneur and like just like a business mind. It's like this is your guy.
oh, appreciate that, brother. Well, that means a lot. It means a lot, and you're a living, breathing embodiment of the work. So thank you. That means a lot coming from you. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and Mastin mostly hangs out on Instagram, right? Just Mastin Kipp. I'll have
Yeah, at Mastin Kipp on Instagram and mastinkipp.com and everywhere else too.
yeah,
So, but
and his
yeah,
book is
Instagram is my main jam.
Reclaim Your Nervous System. It's available everywhere where books are. And this will go out the first week in August. So
Cool.
is functional coaching going to be open then still for applications? Maybe.
Probably, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
I think so.
mastinkipp.com and Instagram has all the information. So if you want to learn more about, working with him, that's the best place to go.
Yeah, mastinkipp.com is the website, and then you know, usually my Instagram profile will have whatever we're doing on it, basically there. And I think for functional coaching, it's mastinkipp.com/FCC-apply. And depending on when that cohort fills, it may or may not be available depending on when that
Yeah.
cohort fills when this comes out. So
And I can personally say I'm like almost through it, if you will, another few months, but it has been like the most impactful training. Like, I haven't even gotten to like the how implementation wise, and the value of the information is just like next level, like beyond any college course that you're ever going to take. And it's
oh
just,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't even recommend it enough.
Well, it means a lot. Yeah, and I mean the reason, as you know, Jason, why we don't rush to implementation is because everyone tries to rush
Yeah.
to implementation without understanding how we work, which is the problem in the first place.
Yep.
And so, and understanding how we work makes the implementation way easier because you actually know what you're doing and what you're doing it with. So I'm excited for the next phase. It's going to be super awesome.
Amazing. Well, thanks
All
again
right,
for your
brother.
time, Maston, and joining me.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure.
All right, dude. Catch you guys next week.